Hey, what's up guys? Back again and Merry Christmas. This time I'm going to show you how to code the Christmas plugin that I told you about last episode for the Spigot development series. So let's get started here. Let's make a new project. And so I called this plugin Elf when I was making it, but you can call it whatever you want, obviously. Oops, let's go back. We want to select Minecraft, Spigot, next, group ID, me.codysimpson. Artifact ID is the project name, so we're going to call this Elf Tutorial. Next, Elf Tutorial, we can leave all this how it is, and we'll call this, wait, we need to change the location of where we're going to put this, so let's do it here, Tutorials, Elf Tutorial, there we go. And I called it Elf just because elves are the ones who make the presents, so I thought that was a fitting name, so click Finish. Okay, first things first, let's open up our project here and make sure that we have the structure set up. So let's make a few packages here. First, we're going to make a commands package. Then we're going to have a listeners package. And then we're going to have a menus package. New menu. Yeah, menu package. And then package menus inside of that. And we're going to be, actually, let's undo that. So what we're going to do is utilize our menu manager system that I've showed you before. So let me go ahead and pull up my repository so I can steal it. So projects, groups, let's see if we can find it. All right, I think I found it. So menu manager Spigot, let's open that up and start stealing some code here. So main, that, and here we go. So let me just copy this one by one. So first things first, we need a menu abstract class. So menu abstract, well, we could just copy it, hold on. All right, there we go. So now we got a menu here. So we also need a player menu utility, so player menu utility, and we're going to be using this to transfer data. Player menu utility, let me copy that also. And if you have not watched my menu manager videos, then go ahead and watch those, because those are useful for this, obviously, because we're using it. Okay, so let's import everything in this class. Boom, boom, boom. All right, almost done. And also the other thing that we're going to be stealing is my color utilities thingy, so we can translate hexadecimal colors really easily. So new utils package, and so we're gonna create a new class called color utils, and let me just go ahead and find that real quick. Boom, boom. So here's our copy, our color utils. Make sure that you import the correct chat color thingy here. Make sure it's from bucket, I mean not from bucket, a bungee, not from Spigot. And then everything else you can import just regular. So import that. Boom. Okay, cool. So now we have that, and we're pretty much good to go now that we've stolen all the code that we need to steal. Stealing code is very important sometimes, you know. So let's create a new command here. So Java class, and we'll call this present command. So this will be the command that you can use to create presents. And so let me make this bigger for you guys. So we're going to do implements command executor, as we always do, and make sure that we implement the method that we need to implement for this to work. Great. And go down here, return true. And so if sender instance of player, then we want to cast player or sender to a player. So player p is equal to player sender, just like that. And so this is going to be how our command works. So slash present, and then to, which is going to represent the recipient of who you want to give the present to, and then the message. And both of these are optional, but if you want to provide a message, you also need to provide a recipient, just because the recipient comes before the message, okay? So let's think about how we're going to do this. So to create presents, they're going to do slash present, provide a recipient optionally and a message. And so what that is going to do is open up a menu, as you saw in the last episode, where they can put the items in the present. They can specify what items they want to have in the present. And so when they click create present, when they're done putting the items in, it's going to create an item stack for you, which is going to represent the present. And what it's going to do is serialize all of the items within that GUI, all the items that you put into the present GUI. It's going to serialize all of those into a string and then store that serialized string into the persistent data container of the item stack that represents the present, the chest present item stack, okay? And so when they put that chest item stack on the ground to open it up, it's going to automatically transfer that persistent data from the item stack to the chest block. And then when they open the present, it's going to check to see if that present has a present persistent data within it. So that's how you identify whether it's a present. And then it's also going to deserialize the string to get all of the items from the present, and it's going to do all of that. So in essence, it's basically going to use a lot of serialization. So make sure that before you watch this, you also watch my serialization and deserialization and persistent data container videos. They're pretty simple once you get the hang of it, but that's what we're going to be using because that's the most efficient way to transfer data across items and blocks and all that stuff, and instead of using a database. So let's get started. Let's try doing that. So the first thing that we want to do is check to see if they provided any arguments, because like I said, these arguments here are optional. So we'll do if args.length is greater than 0, meaning they provided at least one argument. Then what we want to do is try and get the recipient. So if they did provide at least one argument, that also means they provided a recipient at least. So we want to check to see what that recipient is and see if they're a valid recipient. So string 2 is going to be equal to args0, which represents the first argument. And we want to use bucket to check to see if that's a valid player or not. So player recipient is equal to bucket dot get player, and you can pass in a player name, so 2. And so what will happen here, if this is an invalid player, this will return null. So we can just check to see if recipient is equal to null, then we know it's not a valid player name that they provided. Otherwise, it is a valid player name, and we can continue from there. So if it's not a valid player that they provided, we can send them a message telling them so. So we can say the player you specified does not exist. Command, we'll just give them an example of how to use the command. So present to message. And so p.send message, and we could say here is an example / present Billy Bob 1 2 3 I like your mom's legs, something creepy. And so yeah, if it is a valid present, then it'll come to this branch here and we can continue. So first we want to check to see if they provided a message also, because if args.length is greater than 0, it's also possible that they provided a message. So to do that, we can do if args.length is greater than 1, meaning that there's more than one, they provided at least one word in a message. So before we do that, actually, let's see if it's equal to 1. So if it's equal to 1, that means they only provided a recipient. They didn't also provide a message. Otherwise, else if args.length is greater than 1, they also provided a message. So what we want to do at this point is we want to open up a menu that menu that you saw last episode where they can put the presents in. So to do that, we need a menu. So we're going to go to menu, the package here, and create a new package called menus, plural, and create a new present menu. So new present menu. And this will be that GUI I showed you before that they can use to create menu. So public class extends menu. And so we want to implement all the abstract methods that class provides. So implement. And then there's also a constructor, boom. And so inside of this, we can give some information. So we can say the name of the GUI is going to be new present, and then the slots. How many slots do we want? And so we're going to do the max amount of slots for the GUI menu. And so down here, we can actually specify what's going to be in the menu. So this will be the easy part. So let's just have, like I showed you in the last episode, the bottom part of the menu is going to be a thing of glass, and then the top part is going to be the open space where they can put all the items that they want. So for the first thing, let's just put the glass part, so the bottom part. So int I is equal to 27, that's where the glass starts. Let me show you here. So this is 54 slots. So if we want to have glass on the bottom half, that'll be starting at slot 27. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and so on. That'll be 27 where that starts, and then the ending part will here, that'll be 53 because there's 54 total, and it starts at 0, so 53 is the last slot. So we want to do I is equal to 27, I is less than 53, or no, 54, and then I plus plus. And the reason we're doing 54 not 53 is just because it starts at 27 for the I, and then it's not less than or equal to 54, it's less than 54, so it's not going to go to 54, it's going to stop at 53. Just a simple for loop, you should know that. So we'll do inventory dot set item, and then in that we can provide the index. So I, and then filler glass is the glass that we can use to put in there. And then after that, we can do a few things. First things first, let's have a button right here in the middle that allows them to click create present, and that'll create the present for them. So to do that, we're going to make a new item stack. Item stack create is equal to, and we're not going to do the traditional way of creating items. We're just going to use our utility here called make item. That's provided by the menu abstract class that we can use. And this allows you just to create items really easily. So material dot, and then we want to use a material of paper, no, not paper, bell. And the string here, we want the string to be colored, so we can just use our color utils thing here. So color utils, translate color codes, and we can say create present. We're not going to color it yet, so we're just going to leave it how it is for now, just so we can get the basics down first and then come back to that later. So after we have that, it's going to say create present, and then the next thing we can provide is some lore. So for that, we'll make a new line here, and we'll say color utils dot translate color codes, click this item, and the elves dot will package your present. So comma space color utils dot translate color codes will package your present. Okay, so just a simple item here that represents a button that says create present. Click this item and the elves will package your present. So now we just need to put that item to a slot. So inventory.set item. And so what item is that going to be? So this item right here in the middle. So 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40. So 40 is the slot. So set item 40 and then create. So that'll put that item into that slot. So when we are opening this menu, we need to figure out a way for us to transfer the recipient and the message, if provided, into the menu that we're about to open. So we can do that with our player menu utility. So we can just get rid of all this dummy data here and provide our own data. And so what do we want to have stored? So we want to do private string recipient, and then private, what's the other one? Private string message. So if a recipient and a message is provided, we can use it, we can store it within this. So just create a getter and setter for both of these. Boom. So now go back here and say, well, first we need to get our player menu utility. And to do that, we also need to provide a thing within our main class here that actually allows us to do that. So we want to go back to our repository for our menu creator and actually steal the code for that. 1 second, or manager, menu manager. Okay, I found my menu manager repository here. So just click this, and then the main class here. And then down here you can see this big static method, and we can use that to get the player menu utility. So if you don't, so I'm gonna copy this and put it down here. And we also need our hash map. So hash map is where we'll store each player in their player menu utility. So just import everything now. Okay, cool. So now we can use that. And might as well, since we're in the main class, let's also make a way for us to get an instance of the main class. So private static elf tutorial plugin. Because we're gonna need this soon when we're using persistent data containers. So plugin is equal to this, and then we can create a static getter method for that. So code generate getter plugin. There we go. So now we can go back to present command and we can do player menu utility is equal to elf tutorial dot get player menu utility, and then pass in the name, the player object that you want to get the utility for. And what that will do is create the player menu utility if they don't already have one, and then give it to you. And so now that we have a player menu utility, inside of here we know that there's a recipient, so we can do player menu utility dot set recipient, and we can do recipient dot get display name, just like that. And then otherwise, if there's also a message, first things first, let's set the recipient, because if there's a message, there is a recipient. So recipient dot get display name. Oh, I set the wrong thing. So set recipient. There we go. Set recipient. And then after that, we want to set the message. So the message will be a bunch. It can be a bunch of words. It can be one word. It can be a bunch of words. But so we need to figure out a way for us to get all of the words into one string, because it's going to be a varying amount of arguments. So let me give you an example here. So if we were to do /present Bob, and then you can say the message, I love you, that's 3 arguments, right? So how do we get 3 or more arguments, or 1 or more arguments, and put them into one string? So to do that, we can simply make a string builder, and we can build a string using the string builder by looping and getting each of the arguments after this first argument here. So string builder message is equal to new string builder. And so we're going to loop. So for I is equal to 0, I is less than args dot length, and actually we want to start at 1. So since the first one here, since we already have a first argument here, we want to start at 1, because 0 is the first argument and then 1 is the second argument. So yeah, we're going to start at 1, and then we're going to loop towards the end of the arguments list or array, and then I++. All right, and so for each of those arguments that we're grabbing from the second onwards, we want to do message.append args I, and then let's put a space on there also. So that should create a message for us to work with here. So message, contents of string builder message are updated but never queried. Okay, cool. That should be fine. And we can just do that too, it doesn't really matter. Okay, so once we have the message built inside of the string builder here, or stored inside of the string builder here, we can do player menu utility dot set message and do message dot toString, and that'll convert our string builder to a string by calling the toString method. So that should be all we need for that, but one thing that we're forgetting, we can't forget, is to open up the menu. So we're going to do new present menu, and we want to pass in the player menu utility, and then .open, which will open the menu for us here. So that'll create the menu, open it, and we should be able to see the contents of that menu. And one other thing that we also need to do is make sure that we have a menu listener. So Java class menu listener, and we can also copy that from our repository here. So listeners, menu listener. And this will be a nice little listener for us to work with. All right, cool. So let's make sure that we import everything, obviously. All right, I think we're pretty much ready to test this out. So let's go to our elf tutorial main class here and register everything. So first things first, let's register the command. So get command present dot set executor new present command, just like that. And then also let's register the listener. So get server dot get plugin manager dot register events and new menu listener this. Okay, and I think that's it. So now let's go to our plugin.yml and I'll register the command there. So commands present create presents for your homies. All right, cool. So let's go ahead and add the plugin here so that it'll automatically build and compile the plugin into our plugins folder in our server. So I'm just going to copy that from my previous project. So if I go to my pom.xml, I can just copy the plugin. And I just made a video on this recently, by the way, if you haven't seen it. It shows you how to add a thing to your pom.xml so that you can automatically compile your plugin into your test server without having to copy and paste the artifact or the jar file every single time, which is very useful. So now we can click run here, and that should do the magic. So let's wait for that. And let's take a look, and boom, it says elf tutorial.jar. So cool, that's our plugin, so we can start our server now and test it out. Alright, let's continue. So open up our server here, and let's test it out. So we can get rid of all this, clear our inventory to start with. And so we'll do /present, and nothing happens. And let's try providing a name. Boom, okay, cool, that works. So create present, click this item, and the elves will package your present. So looks good so far, except that everything's being canceled. So we're not going to be able to put items in there, but we'll figure that out in a second. First, we should figure out why it's not opening when we don't provide any arguments. Let's check our code real quick, right here. So let's go back to present command. So present command, and so if args.length is greater than 0, okay, so we're not doing anything if it's otherwise. So otherwise, then we're just gonna open it up. So we'll do elf tutorial.getPlayer menu utility and pass in p, just like that. So we don't need to provide a recipient or a message since none was provided. So that should open it up no matter what now because we have the else there. And so now let's try and figure out what we can do to allow us to put items into that inventory. So if we go to the menu listener, we can see that no matter what, if it's a menu, if it's one of our custom menus, because it says instance of menu, if it's one of our custom menus, then we do e.setCanceled. But we don't want that. We only want to cancel if it's if we're touching a specific slot. So we can get rid of this. And so now we can go back to new present menu, and we can check to see in the handle menu method here, we can check to see what slot they are touching and then cancel depending on what slot they're touching. So for example, let's pull up a Minecraft. We can get rid of this, I'm pretty sure. Wait, I need to post a video. Let me post a video real quick. Okay, so Minecraft, let's do /present again. Let me see if we do an invalid name. Yeah, there we go. It says the player you specified does not exist and blah blah blah. So that's good. And so now we'll do /present Cody Simpson 999. And we can see that everything looks good so far, but we want to specify what slots we want to be canceled if we click it and what slots we want to allow if we click it. So this is slot 27 through 53. So we want to cancel those because we want to allow them to move items from their bottom inventory into their top inventory. And then we want to cancel all of these except for this one here. This is slot 40. We don't want to cancel that one because they need to click on that one. Actually, we can cancel that one too because we just need to allow them to click it. So anyway, let's go back to our menu here and we can try checking to see what slot they have clicked. So first things first, we can do e.getSlot, and we can say if getSlot is equal to, let's do 40, that means that they clicked on the create present button. So if they click slot 40, they click create present, and so we'll just cancel, say cancel true. And then after that, we can handle the logic for creating the present. But besides that, if they don't click slot 40, so else if e.getSlot is greater than or equal to 27, and e.getSlot is less than 54, that means that we want to prevent them from moving anything. So we can do e.setCanceled. Okay, cool, so that should prevent them from moving the bottom items down here, okay? But these top ones should be still movable, and these two, because we're only canceling these here. So these other ones should be movable still. So besides that, what do we want to do? So now let's try and figure out how we want to create a present after they click slot 40. So that's this one here. If they click create present, we want to actually get the items in this top part and then make a present out of it. So we're going to need a new utility class here. I'm going to call this present utility. Present utils. And this will be just a simple class that allows us to serialize and create the item that is going to represent our present after they click create present. So inside of this, let's make a method here, public static. It's going to return an item stack, which is going to represent the present, create present. And into this method, we're going to pass in a few things. So we're going to pass in a list of items that we want to serialize and put into that persistent data container of the item. So make sure you import list. All right. And so what else? We're going to need a person. So we want to specify who the present is from, and then who the present is to, the recipient. And then finally, we want a message. And the last two will be optional. So those can be provided as null if there is no recipient or message. So first things first, let's serialize all of the items that were provided so we can put them into the data container of the item that we're about to create. So let's do byte array output stream, bio is equal to new byte array output stream. And then bucket object output stream is equal to new bucket object output stream. And like I said before, if you haven't watched my serialization tutorials and my persistent data container tutorials, then you need to make sure to watch those, because this is useful for that, obviously. And so now we'll do output stream dot write integer, and this will be the amount of items that were provided so that we can grab that when we're deserializing it. So items dot size from the list. And then after that, we can make a simple loop here. So for each, and then for each item that we're providing, we can do, first we need to have a try and catch statement here. IO exception. All right, cool. So for each item that we want to do output stream dot write object, and then just provide the object that we want to write. All right, and then after that, we want to flush the stream to make sure that everything is outputted into the underlying stream here, the byte array output stream. And then we want to actually get the byte array output stream and actually produce a byte array from it so that we can get the data. So serialized data is equal to byte array output stream dot to byte array. And finally, we can encode it using base64. So string encoded string is equal to base64 dot get encoder dot encode to string, and just provide the serialized byte array like that. And so now that we have an encoded string, we can store that within an item. So let's create the item that is going to represent our present. So item stack present is equal to new item stack, and we can do material dot chest, and make sure you import material like that. And so we want to get the item meta of the item. So present meta is equal to present.get item meta. And so meta.set display name present from, and then we can specify who the present is from. So from, because that's provided as a parameter up here. And then besides that, we can access the persistent data container now. So persistent data container is equal to present meta dot get persistent data container, and we want to store the serialized string into that container. So we'll do container dot set new namespace key. New namespace key. And first things first, we need an instance of the plugin. So elf-tutorial.get plugin, and the string name is going to be the name of the thing that we're storing, the key of it. So we'll just call it presents, because the items, well, I guess it would make more sense to call it items, but we'll just call it presents. And so after that, we want the data type, so string, and then the actual data itself, so encoded string. So that's going to store that encoded string into the persistent data container of the item that we're creating. And from there, we also want to provide some lore for the item, so we can just provide some information. So item array list string lore is equal to new array list. And so if 2, which is the person that is sending the recipient of the present, so if 2 is not equal to null, meaning that a recipient was provided, we can do container.set new namespace key elf-tutorial.get plugin, and we'll call it present recipient. So this is how we're going to pass the recipient from the inventory menu into the item that we're creating. So persistent data type dot string and then 2, just like that. And so let's also add the, so if the recipient is provided, we also want to provide that into the lore of the item. So we'll do lore dot add color utils dot translate color codes, and we'll just make it look nice with some colors here. So translate color codes and A and L 2, and we'll make it red bold 2, just like that. And we'll do meta.set lore, or lore, just like that. And so now after that, we also want to check to see if a message was provided. So message is not equal to null. So if a message was provided, we want to store that message into the persistent data container. So container set present message, just like that. All right, that's all we need. We don't want to store the message into the lore of the item. That's going to be saved until they open the present, as you saw last episode. And so that's it. So now we can do present meta, or no, present.set item meta, present meta, and then byte array, the underlying stream, we want to close that. So bio.close, just to free up the resources, and then output stream.close to free up the resources of that stream also. And then after that, we can return the present from the method. So present, there we go. So there we go. Now we have a simple method, a utility method that is going to create a present item out of a list of items, a from person who is, creating the present, and then a recipient, and then a message if provided. And so now we want a method that does the opposite, which deserializes that present item and then gets the items from that. So we can do public static item stack array of items, get items from present, and from to that we just provide string encoded string. All right, and so this is much easier. All we got to do is do the exact opposite. So byte array raw data is equal to base64 dot get decoder, because we're decoding, and then decode encoded string like that, and then byte array input stream bio is equal to new byte array input stream, and we're providing the raw data back into that input stream, and then bucket object input stream, we'll call this input stream, is equal to new bucket object input stream. And from that we can grab first the amount of items from the encoded string. So we want to do int size is equal to input stream dot read integer. So this is how we know how many times we need to loop. So watch this. So now we'll do, well, first we need to store the items into an array. So item stack array items is equal to new item stack. And then that, and so we need to provide a size. So size will just be the size that we just grabbed. And so now we can loop. So for I is equal to 0, I is less than size, and then I plus plus. And so for each of those we can do items I is equal to input stream dot read object like that. And so we can cast that object back into an item stack, since we know it's going to be in a item stack. So I'll just do it manually. So item stack, there we go. And so we also need to make sure that we add the exception here to our signature, or handle it within the thing, and also a class not found exception. So let's make sure we also have that one, like here. There we go. And what's the problem here? It says, oh yeah, we need to put that into that as a parameter, and there we go. So yeah, okay, and then also first, finally, we need to return the items that we're just producing. So there we go. Now we have a simple utility method for getting the items from a present. So these methods do the opposite of each other, basically. So now we can use these within our plugin. So here within our handle menu, we want to first get all of the items from the top part of the menu, and then use our new utility method to make an item out of that, and then give that item to the player. All right, so let's make a simple array list here so we can store all of the items that we're about to grab. So array list of item stacks, items is equal to new array list. And so what are we going to grab? So if we pull up our menu here, we want to grab all of these slots here. So that'll be 0 through 27, or no, 0 through 26 because it's 0 based. So the 27th slot is slot 26. So now we just need to loop through those. So for I is equal to 0, I is less than 27, so 0 through 26, and then I plus plus. And then for each of those, we want to do items. Or no, we want to check to see if the slot that we're about to grab is null, because if a slot is empty, it'll produce null. So we don't want to have a null exception. So we'll do if e.getInventory.getItem at that slot is equal to null or not equal to null. Then what we want to do is do items.add and just do e.getInventory, get item I. So we're checking to see if the item at that slot is null, because if it's null, it'll be empty. So if it's not a null, then we want to get the item and then add it to our array list of item stacks, okay? And so we're going to do that for each of the slots 0 through 26. And then after we do that, we can create the present with our utility method. So present, we're going to need a new object for this. So we'll just make it here. So item stack present, and then present is equal to present utils dot create present, and so we can provide the information. So items from, so who are we going to provide it from? So that'll be the person who's running, or the person who's the owner of the menu. So in this case we can do, so we can just do player menu utility dot get owner, and that'll provide the owner of the menu. Oh yeah, we want to get the it wants a string, so get owner dot get display name. There we go. And so we also want the recipient if one is provided. So we can just do player menu utility dot get recipient, and then player menu utility dot get message, and those will be null if none is provided. So there we go. So now that should create a present, but we also need to handle the exception. So what we're going to do is just cut this and do try, and then catch if there's an exception, IO exception. Then what we want to do, we'll just send them a message. So player menu utility dot send message. Actually, let's just get the player into a player object. So player p is equal to player menu utility dot get owner. There we go. That's easier to work with. So now we can do p dot send message unable to create present sawi. And so now that we have the present inside of here, let's give it to them. So we can do p dot, well, first we want to close the inventory that we have open. So p dot close inventory, and then we can do p dot get inventory, which will get their actual inventory, dot add item, and that'll be present. So now we're adding the present to their inventory, and then we can send them a message just letting them know that we have created the present for them. So you have been given the present. There we go. So that should, when they click the create present button in our menu, it should get all the items in those top slots, create a present out of it, and then give them the present. All right, so let's test this out. So let's go ahead and run this here. So that'll compile it and put it into our server. And so we can go back to our server now and do reload confirm. All right, cool. So let's get some items that we can provide. So diamonds. We can just do iDiamond 1000. There we go. So now let's do /present and try putting, there we go. We can put the items in there. Cool. And so let's try clicking create present, and boom. It says you have been given the present. Now it says present from Cody Simpson 999. Pretty cool. And let's try putting it down. And when we right click it, nothing happens because we have not added that part yet. But yeah, already we're making progress. So let's go ahead and set up that part now. So what we're going to need is some new listeners here to determine when we open a chest, okay? So let's go back to our plugin. Okay, so let's make a new listener here. We'll call it present listener. All right, cool. And so that'll implement listener. And so what we want to do first is have a listener when we place the chest down onto the ground. And so what we need to do at that point is transfer the persistent data from the item into the block that is created on the ground. Because when we place that chest on the ground, we need that data transferred so that we can know when they open a chest if it's a present. Okay, so we're gonna make a new event handler, public void on present place, and the event that we're gonna need is gonna be the block place event. So when they place the present onto the ground, or the chest onto the ground. And so we can first get the item that they're holding currently. So item stack item placed is equal to e.get item in hand. And so we want to check to see if that item that they're about to place or are placing is a present item. So if item placed dot get item meta, get item meta dot get persistent data container dot has new namespace key elf tutorial dot get plugin presence. So that's how we determine if it's a present or not. So if it has the presence data thingy, then we know it's a present, because every present that we create is going to have that key within their container. So presence persistent data type string, and there we go. So if it does have that, then we know it's a present. Otherwise it's not a present, and then we can ignore it. So if it's a present, then what we can do is get the chest item from that. So now that we know that the item that we're about to place is a present, let's get the block that we're actually making when we do the event. So we're going to do chest c is equal to e.getBlockPlaced.getState. And so the reason we're using a chest reference variable rather than just a block or a tile state or anything like that is because a chest has some special things that we can use to actually work with the chest more easily. So yeah, so let me pull up the documentation real quick. So if we search tile state, we can see that the tile state has sub-interfaces of a bunch of blocks, and that includes chest. So if we click on chest, we can see that chest is a tile state, or a sub-interface of tile state. So it does have a persistent data container, which is important to what we're trying to do, but it also has a block inventory, which we can use to access the inventory of the chest that we're trying to work with, okay? And so that's why we're using a chest reference here instead of a tile state reference. The tile state reference is important also, just so that we can access the persistent data container of the item or of the block, but we can also use a chest here to do that, because a chest is a sub-interface of tile state, and also the chest does let us use the block inventory, okay? So that's why we're using that. And so if after we get the chest, we want to cast the state to a chest state. And so after that we can do, we want to get the items from our persistent data container from the item, and then put it into the inventory of the chest here. So a second ago in our present utils, we used the create present method here to serialize all the items of the present into a string and put that string into the persistent data container of the item. So now inside of our present listener, we want to get that string from the persistent data container of the item and store all of those items within the chest itself, okay? So to do that, we can do item stack array items is equal to present maker, and we can use that other method to do the opposite. So present utils, not present maker, dot get items from present, and they want a encoded string, so we can do pretty much the same thing here. Let's just take this. So pass that in, and instead of has, we can just use get. So that'll get the encoded string from the present and pass it into the get items from present method. And we also need to handle the exception here as well in case that ever happens. So we can just cut this and do try and put that inside like that. Okay, so we're gonna get the items. Wait, what's the problem? Oh, we also want to handle the class not found exception. There we go. So after we get the items from our item stack that we're placing down, we want to take those items and then put it into the inventory of the chest that we're trying to work with here. So we can do c.getSnapshot inventory, which is the future inventory of the chest before we update the state of the object. So currently what we're doing here is getting a block and then getting the state of that block, which represents the current state of that block, which is also including the inventory of the block and all that information. But what we want to do is technically edit the future state of that block by getting the future inventory and then putting the items into that future inventory and then setting the state of the current block to that new state that we're editing here. So this represents the current state, which we're going to modify by calling get snapshot inventory and then adding the items to that inventory. And then we're going to update the current state of the block by calling the update method, okay? So we can do c.get snapshot inventory dot add item, or we can add multiple items, right? So add all items. What is it? Oh, set contents. So set contents, and we can just pass in the items array that we want to set the contents of. And then after we set the contents of that future inventory, we can do c.update, which will take that new updated state of the block and then set the current block to that new updated state. That's what the update method does here, okay? So you just got to wrap your head around block state and how that represents a block. So in this case, we're using a special block that has a tile state and also a chest state. This is technically a chest state. And so we're just modifying that state and then updating it to the current block that's in the world, okay, by calling the update method. And also before we update the state of the block, we also want to update the persistent data container of the blocks to add a few things. So like I said before, we want to transfer the data from the item stack into the block so that we know if it's a present or not when we're opening it. So in this case, we'll do persistent data container is equal to c.get persistent data container. And like I said, we can do get persistent data container from this chest object reference here, or reference variable here, because we know that chest is a sub-interface of the tile state interface. And so after that, we can do container.set. And so we need a marker to know that when we open the chest, if this is a present chest or not. So we can just have a marker by doing new namespace key elf tutorial.get plugin, and then the key will be present. And the persistent data type will be integer, and then we can just put anything inside of here to mark it as a present, and you'll see how that works in a second. But before we do that, other stuff, we want to also put the recipient and also the message if it is present from the item stack into the block. So we can do if item placed dot get item meta dot get persistent data container dot has new namespace key elf tutorial dot get plugin present recipient. So if it has present recipient, then we want to take that and then put it into the block that we're working with. So string. So if it's there, then we can do container, which represents the container of the block, right? Dot set, and we're just going to take this and put it into the other one. Okay, so container dot set new namespace key elf tutorial dot get plugin present recipient, and then the data type, so persistent data type string, and then the actual data, which is going to be grabbed from the item. There we go. So that's going to grab it from the item container and then put it into the block container if it's present. And then we'll do the same thing for the message, so we can't forget that. So if present message is present within the persistent data container of the item, we want to set the data container of the block to have that as well. So present message. There we go. And then we call c.update to update the inventory of the block and then also the container of the block. All right, so now we want to have a second listener here so that it's going to represent when we open the chest. So public void on present open, and that's going to be a inventory open event. All right. And so first things first, we need to see if that inventory that we're opening is a chest inventory. So if e.getInventory.getHolder instance of chest, or e.getInventory.getHolder instance of double chest. And so what we can do, and so what we're doing here is we're getting the holder of the inventory, which if we do Control Q here represents an inventory holder. And so if we open up the documentation here, we can see what the heck an inventory holder is. So just loading real quick. So inventory holder, and we can see all known sub-interfaces of inventory holder are a bunch of things, including chest and double chest. So these basically just represent inventories of different entities like blocks or blocks, donkeys, all types of different stuff. Okay, we want to get the player that is trying to open it. So player P is equal to e.getPlayer, and we actually want to cast that to a player, because if you look closely, if you do Control Q, this method actually returns a human entity which is close to a player, but it's not a player, so we want to cast it to a player. so that we get the full range of options that a player object has. And then from that, we also want to get the tile state. So since we know it's a chest has a tile state, and we're going to use the tile state to access the persistent data container of the chest. So we'll do tile state, state is equal to e.get inventory.get holder. And there we go. So now we're going to cast that. Boom. Because we saw a second ago that a chest object, a chest subinterface of tile is a subinterface of tile state. Okay, so we can do that. That's valid. And so now we get the persistent data container. So container is equal to state state.get persistent data container. And so now let's check the container to see if it's a present or not, because anything can be a chest, but not every chest is a present, right? A present. So if the container has new namespace key elf.getTutorial.getPlugin or elf.tutorial.getPlugin present, and then persistent data container integer or data type integer. So if it has that, then we know it's a present. And the reason we know this is because up here we just did player or container.set elf.tutorial.getPlugin present, and then we said an integer of 0. So if a chest has this data thing within their container, then we know it's a present. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. So since we know it's a present now, let's get the items from the chest and then do our magic. So chest c is equal to chest e.get inventory.get holder. Okay, and so we're using chest again just because we can access the inventory from that. So we'll do item stack array items is equal to c.get inventory.get content. So we're grabbing the items from that chest. And so we also want to cancel the event so we don't actually open the chest when we're doing this. So this is where it gets a little complicated. We're going to make it so that whenever they open the chest or the present, it's going to say Merry Christmas using an armor stand. And it's also going to have their message if they provided a message. And then also it's going to have that Christmas tree that floats up into the sky and then explodes and then the items shoot out. So that's going to be a little complicated, but we're going to do that. And so first we're going to do the item stack, the message that says Merry Christmas. So we're going to use an armor stand for that because armor stands allow us to do holograms. And so we're going to have an armor stand and we'll call it Merry Christmas is equal to chest.get location. We don't have a chest, do we? So we'll do, let's get the block of the chest. So block chest is equal to state.get block. So we're getting the block from the state. There we go. Okay, so now we can use that chest to do a few things like get the location. So chest dot get location dot get world, and we're going to use this to spawn the armor stand. So spawn entity, because the armor stand is an entity. And so what do we want? First we want the location. So chest dot get location, and then now we want the entity type, which is going to be an armor stand. So entity type armor stand. There we go. So we're creating an armor stand, and what's the problem here? We need to cast it. There we go. So we're casting the entity to an armor stand from an entity, and so after that we can set a few information. So Merry Christmas dot set gravity to false. Merry Christmas dot set can pick up items to false. Merry Christmas dot set, and we can, okay, so this is how we do the hologram. We're going to give it a custom name. So set custom name, and we can provide the name, which is going to represent the message of the hologram. So we'll say something like, well, we're going to say Merry Christmas, but we're going to use our color utils here to translate that. And I'm just going to copy this message from my other thing here real quick. So this is just a message here using color codes that says Merry Christmas, and you'll see how that looks in a second. So after we set the actual hologram using custom name, we can do Merry Christmas dot set custom name visible. So that's visible. So set custom name visible true, and then Merry Christmas dot set visible of the armor stand itself to false. So they only see the hologram, not the actual armor stand itself. Alright, so let's test it out now just to see where we're at so far. So let's go back to our main here and actually register the listener that we just created. So get server.get plugin manager dot register events new what is it called? Present listener. There we go. So let's see what happens. Alright, so let's do /present. and that's going to open up the GUI, and we can put the present items in there. There we go. And click create present, and it says you have been given the present, and now we have the present. Looks good. And so now let's press it or place it down. There we go. And right click, and it says Merry Christmas. Awesome, there we go. Okay, so it's a little off-centered, but there we go. It's there at least. So it's off-centered, so let's try fixing the center of that, the centering of that. And we can do that. We can do that really easily. So let's go back to our present. My brain is dying. Hold on. What is it called? Present listening. Sorry. So here where we're setting the location of the armor stand, we can do chest.getLocation.add, and we can add onto that. So we can make some modifications to where the armor stand is going to exist. So to the X and also to the Z, we want to add 0.5, and that will center it correctly right over the thingy, the chest present, okay? And is the elevation good? I think so. Let's actually make it go down a little bit more. So let's go back to this, and we'll actually decrease the Y coordinate by negative 0.5, so that'll make it go downwards a little bit. And let's see how this looks. So reload, confirm. And so let's try again. So right click, and it says Merry Christmas, and it's centered now. Awesome, looks good to me. Alright, so we got some good stuff going so far. We made a lot of progress, but my voice is dying right now. I have to drink water every 2 seconds, so I'm gonna end the tutorial here. We're gonna have a third part next, where I'm gonna finish the plugin for you guys. And so if you want to see me finish the plugin, and I'll release the video tomorrow or tonight, then please smash that like button, and I'll finish it as soon as possible and release it for you. Anyway, so I hope you liked this so far. I'll leave the code for this in the description below, so you can see the project code in its final form. And also you can click the link in the description below for our Discord server, so you can join our community and get involved there, get some friends, get help on your stuff, and just hang out with us. And besides that, you can also click the join button below this video, and you can join this channel as a member for as low as 99 cents a month, and you can cancel at any time. And it comes with some cool perks like early access to all of my new videos, a cool rank on my Discord server so you can show everyone how swaggy you are, and also you get your name on the screen like you see right now. So thanks to all of you guys who are supporting me already. Thanks to everyone else who's watching my videos. I appreciate it. And thank you. And again, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. And stay tuned for next episode. Alright, so if you like this video, leave a like. If you want to see more, subscribe. And peace.